Hello everyone, welcome back to this series of Chapter 5 exercises from our BUS 3 to 5 investment course with another exercise. In this particular video, we're going to focus on exercise number 11, which says, consider a risky portfolio. The end of year cash flow derived from the portfolio will be either 50,000 or 150,000 with equal probabilities. So that means each scenario is or has a 50% chance of occurring, okay? The alternative riskless investment in treasury bills pays 5%. First requirement, A, if you require a risk premium of 10%. Now notice that the wording here is important because it says if you require a risk premium of 10%, meaning that you require 10% more or higher return than what is offered by the treasury bills, okay? How much will you be willing to pay for the portfolio, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do, we're going to figure out the expected amount of cash that we're going to generate, considering that there's a 50% chance that we're going to generate 50,000 and another 50% chance that we're going to generate 150,000, okay? So the expected cash flow in this case is going to equal 50% or 0.5 multiplied by $50,000, okay, plus another 50% or 0.5 multiplied by $150,000, okay? Run the numbers. 0.5 multiplied by 50,000 plus 0.5 multiplied by 150,000. And that's going to be $100,000. Okay? Now we need to figure out the required rate of return. The required rate of return, which is going to be equal to the risk-free rate, which is 5%, plus the premium. Where was it? Here. The risk premium of 10%, okay? So that means that the required rate of return is going to be 15%. Okay? Now, what is the question actually asking for? The question is asking what will be the expected or what will the expected rate of return on the portfolio be, okay? Or how much will you be willing, I read the part B. How much will you be willing, right here, to pay for the portfolio? Okay, so meaning that if you require a return of 15%, what is the maximum amount of money that you would be willing to pay to generate this $100,000 by the end of the year? Okay, so that means that the amount of money that we pay needs to generate 15% at least to achieve that $100,000, right? So this amount here, X, which is unknown to us right now, is the amount of money that we will pay, and if it generates, 0.15, if it generates 15% return, it should at least get to $100,000. Okay? So now all we need to do is just solve for x. How do we solve for x in here? We're just going to keep x on one side of the equation and get rid of this term right here. How do I get rid of it? I'm going to need to divide both sides by this amount, which is 1 plus 0.15, which equals 1.15, right? So I'm going to divide both sides by 1.15, and it should give me the value of x. So x equals 100,000 divided by 1.15. And that will be 86,956 and 52 cents. Okay. Now what does this mean? It means that for an investor that wants to achieve or requires a return of 15%, okay, right here, they should not pay, or they should not be willing to pay anything more than $86,956.52. Okay? Because if they pay anything more than that, the 100,000 that they generate is gonna be at is gonna give them a return of less than the 15% that they require. Okay. I hope this part is clear, because this part really depends on your understanding. It's not difficult to figure out mathematically, but a lot of students don't really understand what it means. I'll try to give you another example to hopefully make it simpler. Okay, let's use simpler numbers. If I require a return of 10%, right? That means if I invest $100, I should get at the end of the year $110. Okay, that would be the return at 10%. But what if I paid more than $100? Yani, let's say maybe I paid $105 and then I got $110 at the end of the year. That means that the rate of return that I have generated is actually less than the rate of return that I require, less than the 10% I desire. All right, hopefully this part is clear. Now let's read part B. Right here, it says, suppose the portfolio can be purchased for the amount you found in A, which is this amount right here. Okay. What will be the expected rate of return on the portfolio? So meaning that if I can buy this investment that will generate $100,000 for the amount that we calculated here, what would be the rate of return? Now this process is circular, because we already calculated that if we require a rate of return of 15%, then this amount should be the maximum amount that we should be willing to pay in order to generate this 100,000. Okay, so the process is also applicable the other way around. So since the question is saying that suppose you can purchase the portfolio can be purchased for the amount you found in A, which is this, what will be the expected, or what will the expected rate of return on the portfolio be? That means it's going to be 15%. Okay, but just to be sure, let's run the numbers and confirm. So B, we're going to calculate the rate of return, okay, using our usual formula, which is P1 minus P0 plus D over P0, right? Which is the normal HPR formula that we typically use, right? What is P1 in this case? It's the $100,000. So 100,000 minus what's P0, the beginning price? It's this right here. 86,956.52. Okay. Any dividends? No, because here they're giving us the terminal value of the portfolio, including everything. So we don't know how much of this is dividends, how much of this is actually capital gain. They're just telling us that the portfolio will grow to this terminal value or the end value, right? So there's no dividends here, or we don't really know how much is the dividends, but it must be included in this part. Yani if there was any dividends, it's included in the 100,000, right? So we're just going to divide by P0 again, which is the 86,000, right? 86,956.52. Okay, run the numbers and we should get 15%, but let's see, 100,000 minus 86,956.52 cents divided by 86,956.52 cents. In my calculator, it's showing me 0.15000023. So rounding that up, it's 0.15, which is equal to 15%. All right, so it checks. That means, again, if I invest $86,956.52 and I earn a 15% return, at the end of the year I should have $100,000. All right, so that's the answer to part B. Now let's see part C. Now suppose you require a risk premium of 15% this time. So as you can see, the risk premium have increased from 10% to 15%. What is the price you will be willing to pay now? Basically, we're going to repeat what we've done in A, but this time our required rate of return is not going to be 5% plus 10%. It's going to be 5% plus 15%. Okay? We don't really need to repeat this part. We already know this. This is not going to change. We're just going to repeat this section right here. Okay? So again, C, our required rate of return is going to equal the risk-free rate, which is 5%, plus our risk premium, which is now 15%. So the required rate of return is going to become 20%. Okay? And again, we need to find the value of an investment. We'll say it is X, that if we multiply by 1 plus 0.20, which is 1 plus 20%, should give us $100,000. Okay? And now we just solve for X. So in order to solve for X, we're going to divide both sides by 1.20. All right, so 100,000 divided by 1.2, that gives me 83,333 and 33 cents. Okay, so notice how using similar numbers, similar inputs, and only changing our required rate of return, notice how now we're only going to be willing to pay 83,333 instead of the 86,956 that we were willing to pay if we only want or only desire 15% return. Okay? So the higher the return that we desire or we require, the lower we are going to be willing to pay at the beginning in order to achieve the same terminal value, which is the 100,000. All right. And if you have studied financial management before, you probably understand the concept of time value of money. And this should not be surprising to you. But hopefully you get the idea. All right. So that would be the answer to part C, $83,333.33. Let's go up again to the final requirement, part D. It says comparing your answers, A and C. What do you conclude about the relationship between the required risk premium on a portfolio and the price at which the portfolio will sell? Okay. And here you can describe this in your own words, right? You could say something along the lines of the higher the required return for the investor, the lower the amount that they are going to invest in their initial contribution to acquire that portfolio, which is going to return $100,000 at the end of the investment. Okay? The model answer of the book is similar to that. It says for a given expected cash flow, portfolios that command greater risk premiums must sell at lower prices. Okay? So let's write that down, just to give you a model answer that hopefully you can work with. We're going to say for a given expected cash flow, portfolios that command or require greater risk premiums must sell, or most likely will sell, at lower prices. Okay. Why is that the case? Because for an investor, the risk premium is a compensation for the risk that they are willing to take, right? And depending on their risk tolerance, if they are more leaning towards risk avoidance, okay, they would most likely require higher rates of return to compensate them for the same level of risk. All right. And since they are requiring higher rates of return, they are, since the eventual or the terminal value of the portfolio is fixed, as you can see here, at $100,000, they will only be willing to pay lower amounts to acquire that investment, which is going to generate them $100,000. Okay? أصيغها بالعربي لعل وعسى إن شاء الله تكون واضحة للجميع. إذا كان المستثمر يتطلب عائد أعلى لتعويضه عن المخاطر اللي راح يعرض أمواله أو استثماراته لها، أوكي، كل ما كان هذا العائد أعلى اللي المستثمر يتطلبه، راح يكون هذا المستثمر مستعد إنه يدفع مبلغ أقل من غيره، أوكي، حتى يحقق هذا العائد أو هذا الرقم أو هذه القيمة النهائية للمحفظة. فلو أجيب 2 مستثمرين، واحد يتطلب 15% وواحد يتطلب 20%، المستثمر اللي راح أو اللي يطلب عائد 15% راح يكون مستعد أنه يدفع مبلغ أكبر مقابل أنه يحصل على 100,000 هذه، أو أنه يشارك في هذا الاستثمار ويجني العائد اللي هو عبارة عن 100,000 دولار في نهاية الفترة. أما المستثمر اللي يتطلب عائد أعلى، يتطلب ريسك بريميوم أعلى، يعني يتطلب تعويض أكبر مقابل المخاطر اللي راح تخضع لها أمواله، راح يكون مستعد أنه يدفع مبلغ أقل. أوكي، إن شاء الله أنه يكون واضح. Hopefully this video helps you answer any similar questions. As you can see, here's the solution to this exercise, exercise 11. Hopefully you found it useful, and until I see you inshallah in the next exercise, take care.